Now we're in part two, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start with the Seattle Seahawks at the Carolina Panthers. I picked the Panthers to win this one because they were at home. Cam Newton, he decided he didn't want me to be right. He didn't want me to be right in this prediction. And the Seahawks won. And they beat his ass. They beat that team up. The Seahawks defense, what we learned about the Seahawks is that their defense needs to get the recognition that they deserve. They are actually the number one defense in the league right now. So, if that doesn't tell you anything, I don't know what will. This was an ugly game, and Russell Wilson, like I said, he didn't ball out, but he didn't cost the Seahawks the game either. Marshawn Lynch, strong running game, but it really predicated on how well the Seahawks defense pretty much contained the Carolina Panthers. And what we learned about them is that when that defense is clicking, it's really hard to score on that team. Really hard. Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas. I mean, basically, they have some really talented defensive players. And I think it's time that they start getting the national recognition that they deserve. What we learned about the Panthers is that we learned this in 2 words. Sophomore slump. Hi, Cam Newton. It was all good just a year ago, wasn't it? Now this season, you're playing terrible, son. And you know it. You know, all that braggadocio, all that when you score and all, yeah, basically teams are starting to figure you out. And it was to be expected because you really took the league by storm during a lockout season. Teams have film on you. Teams have your tendencies, your schemes, how you react. And what the hell was that pass to your tight end? Like, seriously, I think I could have got that one in. You hit his feet. I mean, it was like 2 yards from his feet in a goal line situation. Watch the highlights from that game again, folks, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But, yeah, this team was supposed to be one that was going to be highly competitive in the NFC South, or just really in the NFC in general, now that they had Cam Newton doing his thing, and D'Angelo Williams, and Jonathan Stewart, and Steve Smith, and Brandon LaFell, and Greg Olsen. They were going to do some things, and then they were going to have the defense healthy. Ugh. That's what y'all are right now. You stink. You guys stink. Chicago at Jacksonville. What we learned about Chicago. Same thing we learned about them when they played Dallas. That opportunistic defense is incredible. Now, Tillman and Briggs are the first 2 players in NFL history to have back-to-back games where they have returned an interception for a touchdown. And Cutler and Marshall are still doing that thing. Now, they're going to have to adjust because their rookie receiver, Alshon Jeffrey, is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken hand. But that Bears team is making some serious moves right now. The only loss that they've suffered was against the Packers. Ever since then, they've adjusted and re-upped and regrouped and kicked ass these last 2 weeks. And the NFC North race is going to be something interesting if it's playing out the way it is right now. And I'll speak on the other team that's going to be a major part of that race, too, in a second. What we learned about Jacksonville is what we've always learned about Jacksonville since last season. They suck. They completely suck. Blaine Gabbert sucks. Their play calling sucks. Their offensive scheme sucks. Milk carton, APB. Where is Justin Blackman? Maurice Jones-Drew. Everybody knows they can stack the box on him. Last year they did that and he still ran wild. This year he can't get off the blocks. It ain't on him. It's just that team absolutely sucks. That team is terrible. The Browns can compete even when they suck. The Jaguars, not so much. If you're a Jags fan, man, my heart goes out to you. It's got to suck. Denver at New England, and not too excited about this because, of course, the hype was about Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. I don't care, ladies and gentlemen. I've been a diehard football fan since my single-digit years, and never in my life have I been more disinterested in a rivalry than I am of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. What we learned about Denver is that, yeah, they play great when they're behind the 8 ball. When they get down big, like more than 2 scores, yeah, they play that urgency ball, and it makes it look like, oh, man, they're competitive. Well, why the hell aren't they doing this when the score is tied or when they get up a touchdown or a field goal or so? Why do they wait until they're getting beat to have a sense of urgency? I mean, Peyton had a good game. But when Willis McGahee is giving up the ball and the defense isn't stopping Brady from marching up and down the field, or that run game of the Patriots, it doesn't matter. And once you get down in the hole, once again, they always play with a sense of urgency. You're not going to win games like that. So, there's your Denver Broncos, folks. What we learned about New England is that they have a damn running game. Surprise, surprise. Which, if that passing game stays the way it is and they have a running game, that's scary for a lot of teams in the AFC. Because now you got to account for their backs. Stephen Ridley. I can't think of the other guy's name, but Stephen Ridley, he's the one that stands out to me. Then, of course, there's Tom Brady and Wes Welker and Brandon Lloyd and Gronk. And then they're going to get Aaron Hernandez back soon. Good luck. That's all I got to say. Buffalo Bills at the San Francisco 49ers. What we learned about the Buffalo Bills is that money can't buy you a defense. I don't know what the hell they can do to shore up that defense. I just talked about the Patriots, and you got to remember when the Bills played the Patriots last week. They were up by 14 on them, only to allow the Patriots to go on a 44-14 run. Yes, they got beat 52 to 28. Then they go to San Francisco and get beat 45-3. They gave up 600 yards. They already made history in futility, NFL-wise, by allowing a 300-yard passer, 2 100-yard running backs, and 2 100-yard receivers. They damn near repeated that performance against San Francisco by allowing a 300-yard passer, a 100-yard rusher, and 2 100-yard receivers. I don't know if y'all noticed this, but if your defense can't stop a nosebleed, that offense isn't gonna do much of anything. And then, of course, on top of that, that offense really didn't do much of anything at all. Fitzpatrick threw a careless pick. Scott Chandler giving up a fumble right when they got the ball off of a fumble from Colin Kaepernick, which led to another touchdown, which pretty much put the game out of reach at that point before the half. But Bills got some problems. And Mario Williams, way to be Albert Haynesworth 2.0. And I'm sure Jamarcus Russell is smiling somewhere too. What we learned about the 49ers is that they're still taking it out on anybody and everybody when they lost to the Minnesota Vikings. That loss really is bothering them because they are really punishing other opponents since that. The Jets, they shut out 34-0. Then they welcomed the Buffalo Bills into the stick and beat them 45-3. And basically accumulating the most total yardage in franchise history with 621, and they are the first team in NFL history to have thrown for 300 yards and to have run for 300 yards total as a team. What we're learning is that Alex Smith, get rid of that game manager tag. It's done. He ain't elite, but he ain't no damn game manager. Like, he is playing like a top half quarterback at this point. He ran wild, 18-24, 303 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, no sacks, which is a credit to the offensive line. But Alex Smith is playing his best ball, and he is 17-14 since Harbaugh became the coach of the 49ers. So all it took was a good head coach and a great offensive coordinator. Funny how that works. And if you look at the other quarterbacks that have been having seasons of victories, what's the one underlying thing? Same head coach, same coordinator. Never fails. Like I said, we learned about the 49ers is that any team that's like running up on them after they got beat by the Vikings, good luck. And then on top of that, they play the New York Giants this Sunday, which if they beat them, then Jim Harbaugh will have completed a 3-game sweep of any and every team that represents the state of New York or New Jersey, however you want to see it. So, next up, we have the Tennessee Titans at the Minnesota Vikings. What we learned about the Titans is that this team sucks. They're in disarray. There's really nothing exciting about this team. They've already lost their starting QB, Jake Locker. Matt Hasselbeck isn't getting it done. I don't know what happened to their running back. They had one that rushed for 2,000 yards at one point, and he hasn't been seen since. Yeah, Chris Johnson. Yeah, I'm looking at you, buddy. You know, I'm sure there are fantasy leagues now that have actually removed you from the do not drop list, because I know there's some serious fantasy owners that want to dump you as fast as possible. And I'm glad I didn't draft you because I've seen it coming. But they have no running game. They have no passing game. Their defense is non-existent. They are the first team in NFL history to give up at least 30 points in each of their first 5 games. In the game that they did win against the Lions, they gave up 41. So, if you're a Titans fan, there's really not much to celebrate or to be excited about at all. What have we learned about the Minnesota Vikings? This could be one of the surprise teams of the season. They are last year's 49ers, which is ironic because they beat them. But whether it's Christian Ponder getting it done, or Adrian Peterson getting it done, or in this case Percy Harvin getting it done, in that defense, like seriously, that team is going to be in the thick of the race for the NFC North title. And they, alongside of the Bears, are going to be the heads of that. They're playing incredibly well. And they have a lot to be proud of. They're 4-1. The Bears are 4-1. You know, they're sitting atop of the NFC North. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that division plays out. But what we learned about the Vikings is that they're playing their best ball since Brett Favre was there in 2009. So, Sunday night game, San Diego Chargers at the New Orleans Saints. What we learned about the Chargers is that you better listen to Chris Collinsworth. He called the final sequence of the Chargers trying to make a comeback or trying to at least tie the game against the New Orleans Saints. Jared Gaither got beat on the next to last play for the San Diego Chargers. Chris Collinsworth immediately points out that Gaither looked lame, he looked stiff, and that basically if they don't do something about it, that he would end up giving up like a sack or a fumble to cost them the game. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. What we learned about the Chargers is that ever since their 2-0, 3-0 start, they've fallen flat outside of that game against the Chiefs. They've been blown out against the Falcons. They played an emotionally charged Saints team who Goodell actually threw them a bone and allowed Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton to attend the game. I guess they felt them because they played like the Saints that were the Saints last season and the season before. Now, of course, they didn't want to show them on the big screen because they didn't want to cause a ruckus. But the Chargers, tough break for them. And I think they got jobbed on a couple penalties in that game, too. Maybe they just wanted the Saints to win, but, you know, it is what it is. But Chargers aren't in a bad shape, but they got some things they need to work on. What we learned about the Saints is that put Daddy Payton back in the box, and they play like the Saints of old. Drew Brees is now the sole record holder for most consecutive games with at least one touchdown pass with 48. Don't get it twisted, though. That defense still is terrible because the Chargers had a chance to win this game, straight up. What we also learned is that Goodell really doesn't give a shit about that team. When Bounty Gate happened, he threw down the punishment. Then all of a sudden the punishment was lifted. Goodell said, no, I'm not done with this yet. And sure enough, Scott Fujita had a game reduced on his suspension, but he's still suspended. Who's it? Will Smith, still suspended. And Jonathan Vilma, you're still done for the year. So, that's what we learned about the Saints. They're no longer winless, but, yeah. I still don't see them making much progress outside of that. And if they do, it'll be a shock to me. The final game, the Monday night game, the Houston Texans at the New York Jets. This was a competitive game. This was a tight game. This is a hard-fought game. The Jets came out, desperate teams are the most dangerous teams. And they came out swinging, and they went down swinging. What we learned about the Houston Texans is that, even in tight games, they'll find a way to get it done. And J.J. Watt, that kid is a monster. And I pretty much called it when he got drafted that the Houston Texans picked up somebody who was going to be a beast. He's a beast. Tipped 2 passes in that game, and he tipped one that pretty much ended the game. What we learned about them is what we're getting ready to learn about them is how they adjust to not having their top linebacker for the rest of the season, Brian Cushing, who was lost for the season with a torn ACL on a very questionable chop block by one of the linemen for the New York Jets, and the NFL is reviewing that right now. But yeah, he's done for the season with a torn ACL. So it's going to be interesting to see how Connor Barwin and Brooks Reed, how they step up in his place. And, and good luck, Brady James. But they're going to need all those linebackers to step up in Cushing's absence. What we learned, Arian Foster is still a monster in the run game. And, you have a great running game, you can control the clock. You control the clock, you control the game. So that's that. What we learned about the Jets is that they're the Jets. They still got issues. They have no playmakers on offense. Of course, it's all going to, fall on Sanchez's shoulders, which he deserves some of the blame, but he doesn't deserve all of it. You have no offensive weapons. That defense, where is it? You know what I mean? They pretty much threw everything but the kitchen sink at the Houston Texans as far as gadget plays, trick plays. Tebow, if you're gonna do a trick play with Tebow, make sure you throw the ball and keep it in bounds for Cromartie. But that team is a circus. It's to the point where T.O. is even tweeting about about the Jets calling his agent to see about bringing him on, as if that franchise needed any more distractions. They already had the distraction to being the Jets in the first place. They bring in Tim Tebow, which is a distraction in its own right, and it's not due to him. It's just how the media follows him around. And then you're going to bring in Terrell Owens? No, don't. Jets, just don't. That's all I got to say. And that's what we learned about the teams that competed in Week 5. And I'll be back a little bit later with my prediction for tonight's game of the Pittsburgh Steelers heading to the Music City to play the Tennessee Titans. I think you already know where I'm going to go with this one, but hey, it's a video. I still do it. I still give my analysis. I still give my predictions. So that'll do it for what have we learned in Week 5. This is Adrian Mason, signing off.